Hey guys, Nemo here, and today we're gonna do the tier 2 list, except there's still a few other things I want to talk about first. Right here on the Wizards website, um, oh, I can't really show you the URL unless I copy it into. Hang on, check it. Here's the URL. Well, it's gonna be in the description as well, so you can click on the link in the description, it'll take you there, and this is a featured article on the Wizard site talking about Magic 2013. So yeah, they talk a little bit about Plane Chase. So it's apparently in 2013 there's gonna be the Plane Chase 2012 edition. So I was expecting it to be 2013, but maybe I didn't read everything correctly, or this is a new information. But yeah, it's gonna be the 2012 Plane Chase cards. So let's go down here, and they explain what encounters are. So it's kind of like a challenge, except over multiple turns. It's one of those puzzles, except the computer just draws the same cards, draws like predetermined cards, and you got so many turns to beat him, I guess. So yeah, it's more of an interactive puzzle, and hopefully there are gonna be multiple ways to win this. As I read it, actually, it doesn't say that you draw predetermined cards. So I guess, yeah, you draw whatever cards you draw. I suppose. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, and I guess they put this in to make sure that there's always going to be some challenge um, throughout the campaign. Hopefully these encounters unlock, and you have to beat them in order to progress through the campaign. That would be cool. So yeah, my voice broke there. I'm pretty excited about that. And then they talk about an exalted deck, and here's a card from the exalted deck, and they confirm that there's indeed a goblins deck, and I think that's pretty much all. And then they talk about the end step and manual mana tapping, which you already know about is in the game. Player status screen, we've seen that in Wingspan TT's videos, and a little article on, that if you have a friend who you want to get into Magic, then you should probably buy this game for him. So yeah, of course they're advertising themselves, and yeah, it releases on June 20th, which we already knew. Alright, so go check that page out, link is in the description, and let's go on to the next thing on my agenda, which is gonna be right this. Check it out. I played a game of I played a game of March to War earlier today, and this is the hand I got. I decided to print screen this, and the next thing I drew was um, what's it called? The guy, the warden, the guy who gives you life every time a creature enters the battlefield is the first thing I drew. So that was insane. And then the next thing I drew was Path to Exile, so I could Path to Exile one of my own dudes, get the 4th land for Glory of Warfare, and then I also drew the 4th Raise the Alarm. I'm not kidding, guys. This was an insane hand. Alright, just wanted to show you that. Now I'll keep it. So anyway, let's get into the tier list. Yeah. Alright, so the first deck in tier list 2 is gonna be the best deck out of tier list 2, because we always do this in a certain order. And it's gonna be Forest Fury. This deck is almost good enough to be tier 1, but sadly it just doesn't make it. But yeah, these Primal Bellows are amazing. We all know Tree Folk Harbinger is broken. Well, all of this is just good stuff. I've seen people run, well, Brindle Boars are terrible. Hardwood Storyteller doesn't work in this deck because you've got too many instants and sorceries that you want to cast yourself. And even this thing, so you don't want to give your opponent card advantage, and that's usually what happens when you have this guy in this deck, because you got a lot of stuff, and all of this is pretty significant and important to play too. You can't just do without. So yeah. And then there's, I don't know who would ever run that. Ambassador Oak I don't like, because if you compare it with the other 4 drops, you've got Dauntless Dowerbarks that are definitely gotta have to be in this deck, because they're game winners. And the Cloud Crown Oaks gotta be in the deck because they have reach. So there's no real place for Ambassador Oak for me, I think. so I don't run them. Blunt Assault is terrible. A fog card for 4 mana is a bit much. Harmless Assault, yeah, I think it's Harmless Assault. That's a better card because it only prevents attackers' combat damage, and you can block and kill the attackers. So that's way better. And plus, Wielding Steel is really more of a deck that uses those kind of effects to better effect as well. Effect. And Carproof Vorak doesn't have trample, so I don't like him. Weather Sheet 3 focus too expensive. Yes, he comes back, but I hardly ever need card advantage with this deck. Multani is too expensive and doesn't work in 1v1. Verdant Force is way too big. It's a Timmy card. You shouldn't run it. If you want to run big cards, then you gotta run stuff like Woodfall Primus that comes in and immediately destroys permanents. So even if they kill it, then it's still 2 for 1 trade, and you're gaining from that. So yeah, that's 3 folk for you. Next deck is gonna be Unquenchable Fire. Well, this deck has always been good, and I think, well, I would have probably, before the expansion, I would have probably said that this was tier 1, because it destroys Bloodhunger, it destroys a Realm of Illusion, doesn't really destroy it, but it does a good job of, being able to combat it. And it works well against Knights as well if you set it up like that, but I don't have it set up against Knights, but I hardly ever see Knights anymore, so I'm not that worried that I need to have a deck set up just to beat them. But yeah, Unquenchable Fire can beat a lot of decks that are better than it, sorta, so it's got an interesting position in the metagame, is what I'm trying to say. But it's still even without that, it's a good deck, and it gets high numbers, and it's pretty much top of tier 2 right now, in my opinion. Obviously, you want to run Banefire and Blaze, and Banefire is one of the reasons why it can beat Realm of Illusion, as evidenced by my game where I played Realm of Illusion against Ashley. So yeah. And then there's the Flamekin Brawlers, Flame Slashes. Yeah, well, all of this stuff is obviously pretty good, and it's just the way you want to run it. And yeah, I have 1 Fire Elemental and 1 Lava X, because sometimes I need one, sometimes I need the other, but I don't need 2 of one of them. So it works better that way. And I have 1 Flame Rift as well rather than 2, because sometimes Flame Rift doesn't work as well for me either if it's gonna be a damage race. So yeah, and I like to have Flame Wave in there, because this deck really it has 24 lands, which is a bit much for a burn deck, but it's explained by the fact that you have these Fiery Hellhounds and Flamekin Brawlers and Banefire and Blaze that all have, say, X. You need to put mana in it. So having extra mana then isn't so much of a waste. So it makes sense that way. And Inferno Titan also, by the way, I forgot, and also Flame Blast. So yeah. And when you have those on the field, then more mana you have, the better. And but what I want to say with all this is that it does have kind of a lot of mana for a burn deck. So because of that, it works out to have Flame Wave in there, because you're gonna draw 7 lands most of the time anyway. So yeah, and this is pretty slow deck as well. It's not a super fast deck, because most of the time you're just controlling the opponent rather than burning him in the face with this. So yeah, unless of course you've got Kiln Fiend out and you're burning them and killing them. Then you're controlling them and killing them, I mean to say. Yeah. Yay for pronunciation. Yeah. Next deck is gonna be Dark Heavens, the white-black deck. Yeah, so this deck is a lot better than I gave it credit for at first. And it took me a while to realize just how to run it, because at first I had these Field of Souls in there, and it was pretty amazing. But except it just was way too slow, and I got killed way too fast when you have these in. Yeah, and I didn't run my Midnight Haunting because I had Field of Souls and stuff like that. I wanted to have as much non-token creatures as possible to work with Field of Souls, but that build just wasn't as good as I thought it was, and this build is better. So yeah, obviously running the best cards is a better build. I don't know why I didn't figure that. This is you try to make thematic builds and build around certain cards, But most of the time with these decks, I found that just putting all the best cards in there that seem to work best is really the best way to go, rather than trying to combo up or build some kind of theme around decks. Um, but yeah, I put all the best cards in there that I think are always pretty much work. Um, and stuff that's too slow. This season is, well, a double-edged blade. I don't like it that much. Lightkeeper of Emeria, I've seen it work, but it doesn't always work. So I've had it against Unquenchable Fire though, where I played it like 5 times, and I kept getting life off of it, and that was the only way I could win that match because he had so much burn. Um, but yeah, he had the 5-drop out that doubles his burn damage as well, and really Lightkeeper saved me that game. But obviously, you don't keep a card in a deck just because it saves you in one game. That's not the way to roll, and that's not how I roll. So yeah, but Season is double-edged blade, and this Woebringer demon is pretty cool, but um, usually you don't even suffer from it. Usually, it's easy enough to set up a way that the opponent has more trouble with the Woebringer than you do, but and obviously they want to get rid of their weakest dudes, and sometimes you just get rid of your strongest dude because you're gonna living death anyway, and they don't know. So it's easy to set up a way that you profit more from Woebringer than they do. However, the main thing I don't like about it is that the card is kind of bugged, where Baneslayer has protection from demons and somehow doesn't need to be sacrificed from Woebringer's effect, which isn't correct and it is wrong with this game. Is a bug in this game, and well, I don't like running into that, so I don't like running Woebringer Demon because I've seen it destroy me too many times, where Baneslayer just survives, and I don't like that kind of stuff, so I don't use him. And Deathless Angel, well, seems really good, but it's kind of too slow, so yeah. It doesn't do something the turn it comes into play. You have to survive a turn with it, and then it does something. And most of these other things just do something as they come in, so that's why I like those better. Pestilence Demon is the big win more card, I suppose, for this deck, and even for this deck it's too big and too much win more. Um, Again, it doesn't do something when it comes into play. You have to survive a turn before it does something. Compare that to a Chroma, which is haste and pretty much pro everything almost. Um, so yeah, just saying, yeah. So also sometimes you're low on life with this deck, and you can't use his ability because you're gonna kill yourself more than you're gonna kill the opponent. So that sucks when that happens, and it's not really far-fetched either because this is a slow deck. So who's gonna be on lower life totals? Usually you. So anyway, that was Dark Heavens, and now we're gonna go into a quite similar deck. Let's see, which way do I go? I think to the left. There it is. Ancient Depths is quite similar and almost has the same win-loss. I think these decks are pretty much just as good as each other, and yeah. But I've seen people run this quite differently than I do, and I don't really get why. People run this Kraken Hatchling and stuff, and Treasure Hunt, and Compulsive Research, and Edric, and Elvish Piper, and I know that that may seem like it works for you, and Living Destiny seems to be a favorite among people, Tidings as well. I know these cards may seem like they work for you, but try it without them and you'll be amazed that this deck is going to be a lot more streamlined and faster. So I've pretty much only got the ramping in there and the big guys. Ramping and big guys, and that's all I need, and I hardly ever need to get more cards if I have the right cards in there. See, the thing about card draw is that it takes you another turn, and with this deck you don't have that many turns. Once you've got your mana, you got to be fast. So it's better to just have that guy in hand. And I think that with the amount of cards here, I think that the chance that you're gonna have something big is big enough that you don't need to also draw a card to get it. Um, but that's just my opinion about it. Now, I've seen other people. I've also seen people talk about Inkwell of Life and that you need to take it out because it's dangerous against Realm Evolution when they bribery you, well, I got news for you. If you're playing this deck against Realm Evolution, then you're probably gonna lose anyway. So don't make a switch just because of Realm Evolution, because this deck doesn't work against Realm Evolution anyway. Is yeah. So yeah, and well, that's pretty much it. Aside from all that, I got the Mold Chamber in there, which isn't either of ramp or a big guy, and some of stuff like Polymorph and all that. See, the thing is why I like Polymorph more than stuff like Edric and Elvish Piper. See, these guys get you card advantage or try to speed you up or just do something outside of ramping. And the problem I have with that is that it costs you a turn, and if they do something about it, then you're probably going to be too slow from the rest of the game, because they can easily kill it and play something else at the same turn. So it's not very efficient for you, and you're going to be behind because of that. So I'd rather just ramp up and hardcast my big guy than get it with Elvish Piper. I know that sometimes the Elvish Piper does work, and but usually it doesn't. So, and Polymorph I do like, because even if I get something, even if I don't get a big guy, look at what I will get. I will still get a Coiling Oracle, or Pondu Giant, or well, that's it basically, or a Coiling Oracle or an Ondu Giant. And guess what? I'm still ramping if I get a Coiling Oracle or an Ondu Giant. So I didn't waste my turn, so it still works. Of course, I'm gonna be sad if I get a Mold Chamber, because you don't get a kick Mold Chamber if you polymorph into it. And that's also why I didn't use Mold Chamber for a while, but I think it's still good enough that you kinda need this guy. He strangely works well in this deck, so um, sometimes you need to destroy a land or some kind of permanent, and Mold Chamber is your guy. He saves you. So yeah, this deck didn't have any tricks before that, and Windstorm also really good. So yeah, aside from that, that's the deck. Really streamlined, just ramp, get your big guys out, that's all. That's all this deck needs to do, and it does it well. So let's go to the next deck on our list. And that's gonna be Machinations. Yeah, because I have a pretty fast build for Machinations, and it does pretty well, so it's in tier 2 for me. It's the bottom of tier 2, but it's still in tier 2. And yeah, I was pretty surprised that Machinations is able to be pretty good after all. But the key is really these signal pests. They work so well when you have a bunch of small dudes. And with this deck, you shouldn't be afraid to mulligan. If you see a slow hand, mulligan. But you want a fast hand with this deck. You want to get an Ethereum Sculptor and some small dudes and maybe a signal pest, and then you're good to go. And you'll draw. You don't even need Steel Overseer, it's nice, but you don't need it. You don't need Tide Hollow Strix, it's nice, but you don't need it. Don't need these two. You just need a bunch of small dudes and a signal pest. That's really all you need. If you get that, then you can deal so much damage in the first couple of turns that the opponent has a very hard time getting back from there. And then you draw something big, a counterspell to prevent them from coming back from that, or a Cumberstone, or just something, and then you win. And that's how this deck really works. And yeah, you don't need these Stereomorphic Expanses if you're running it blue-black aggro, because you don't need that much land, and you don't need to fix your mana, because it's just a 2-color deck now. So also don't like Darksteel Plate, because it's too slow for my liking. You gotta play it, then wait, then equip it the next turn, then kill it in response, then it's another turn, you gotta equip it again. It takes too long. Yeah, you got some unwinnable. Unwinnable for your opponent kind of plays with Darksteel Plate, but I don't think it's worth it, because it's all just win more stuff in my opinion. That Reckoning is pretty good, but the reason I don't run it is because it's too black to cast, and I hardly ever have that kind of mana on turn 3. So yeah, if I don't run these mana fixers, then I don't run Dead Reckoning. I do run Damnation though, because well, Damnation has to be run. But other than that, I don't like running 2 black in a deck that's mostly blue. yeah, so anyway, that's my Machinations build, and that's tier 2 for me. So hope you guys enjoyed. So this has been tier 2, and I have been Nemo, and I will still be Nemo next time. See you guys then. Peace.